The God phenomenon. Studying God and even expressing who God is difficult. Yet much work has gone into trying to illustrate and spell out understandings of God through an integration of theology, spirituality, psychology, and also through positivism, relativism, individualism, and secularism that dominate modern thought. The same can be said for neuroscience and evolutionary psychology, which today provide fertile ground for exploring views from ontology, anthropology, and epistemology. Religions have not arisen because of the denial of God, leading to human self-sufficiency, and the alluring drive to remake the world according to one's subjective designs, but because of the faith of their followers. Religions have come into being because of the personal and collective experiences of God phenomenons. With no clear human way of understanding God, any way of understanding is insufficient to describe something, someone intangible. Attempts have been made to experience God variously through art, writing, and day-to-day activities. These experiences have been studied through different lenses, including the pure sciences and the social sciences. Research psychologists who have delved into the scientific study of human thought and behavior have provided some notable challenges to established religious beliefs, especially with the doctrinal safe ideas of God. One of the ways in which God experience is described, studied, and illustrated is through phenomenology. The phenomenon is the reality for the one who has experienced it. Scripture and tradition are two ways in which God is understood by religious people. Most scriptural understandings for Christians come through the Bible, while historical understandings often come through tradition. The Bible gives many God images, some of which are ruler, master, servant, father, spirit, warrior, destroyer, breath, fire, eternal power, and divine nature, the merciful, living water, Abba, Father, King, and Lord. The early Christian writers use anthropomorphisms to describe God. Classical theologies also describe God as all good, all-knowing, omnipresent, eternal, unchanging, deliverer, rock, always present shepherd to his flock, infinite and incorporeal, as well as impassible, immutable, ineffable, uncompounded, and invisible. God is often depicted in Western culture as an older, white, powerful male, while more recent theologies describe God as young or black or female, or all three in combination. In religious traditions, ways of worship, understandings of God often become dogma. Christ, even as God, always drew between himself and the Father a distinction. He claimed unity and equality with the Father, but not identity. Jesus was God, but not as the Father, but as the Son. Most psychological theories relate God images to actions of the psyche, the mind, and early childhood influences. These include attachment theory, object relations theory, continuity theory, narrative theory, cognitive behavioral theory, theistic psychotherapy, faith development theory, and well-being therapy. Therefore, God is understood and experienced in different ways. Similarly is the case with Jesus. Whatever be the lens through which God is looked at, it is evident that it is He who becomes the object and the focus. He stirs up different emotions, especially for Christians, and those emotions reach the conscious dimension of that person's life. Whether it be theology, religious studies, psychology, or any of the social sciences, God affects, and there are effects on those who believe in Him. Psychology has looked at God in various ways, and God's psyche has been studied, as has been His personality. A science like psychology is valid to the extent that it recognizes God's presence and that there is agreement between the divine mind, the creative order, and the human mind. With increasing openness to change comes a greater tendency to embrace new experiences, tolerate uncertainty, and welcome diversity. There are those who appear to be motivated by a desire for the acquisition of new experiences that are novel, exciting, and diverse, which could then denigrate into New Age understandings of faith. God, the phenomenon, whether studied psychologically or theologically, has important religious implications. Scholars theorize that much of our lives inhabit a middle ground between the unconscious and the conscious, the ground of the imagination. The language of the imagination and its images give rise to feelings of belonging, fundamental goodness, and control. It is through the imagination that followers assimilate and integrate God into their lives. Thus, it is this middle ground that acknowledges the importance of psychic representations, some of which may need to be challenged to expand and also to be transformed. Therefore, the path to God is from the senses to the mind, where it becomes part of conception, imagination, and memory. The imagination is a way by which the inexpressible is made expressible and visible through and in which images, gestures, sounds, words, or actions disclose God in human experience, as it opens a realm unavailable to us. An integration of psychology and Christianity without devolving into neo-Gnosticism or neo-Pelagianism means practitioners need to become immersed in scripture and the Christian tradition. Integration within the Christian understanding would require an activation and integration of faith beliefs and other beliefs that relate to human nature. This is true for a practicing counselor as well as for a client. Personal understandings must be considered to adequately interpret faith in its full sense, and these would have to be assessed in terms of compatibility with the scriptures. This would then help the practitioner and client make sense of original beliefs and faith understandings. Believers must understand the human psyche in the light of faith. The human psyche can be understood or misunderstood only in the light of church teachings, of which revelation is one such teaching. This can happen by those who recognize the light of revelation as the light of revelation, and who can then turn to God. Otherwise, God and faith would suffer. The Christian psychologist is called upon to sift out ungodly speculations and prideful independence, which occurs in modern psychology, and understand the science of psychology with God assumptions.